everyone to the Options and Links Features Review. And the purpose of our webinar today is to go over some of the different features and functionality that we have available in different parts of the system that fall under these options buttons and these links down here. I know when I was starting to use MaxxTraxx, you know, once I got going with it, I just kind of understood the way I needed to get through my day, what was my workflow, and I never really went through and explored some of these additional options, so I just thought we'd cover some of them today. Now I have everybody unmuted, and Robin, I just unmuted you as well. If there's any background noise, we may have to turn that back on, but feel free to. I'm going to go ahead and mute that again. So if you guys actually want to ask any questions, like I mentioned before, best thing to do is to call in. So first thing I wanted to talk about today was the options button that's available here from the service counter. Now as we look at this options button, you'll see a lot of these features here are built into the workflow, just your normal day-to-day work, making a new appointment, writing repair orders. But here we have some of our searching capabilities. If you want to search for appointments that may be in the future, we can do that. We can search by the customer's name. See if we have any going forward. So we actually have one for November, for example. So we could always click on that, and it jumps us to the future schedule. So you got a couple of features there. I'm going to click on the Today button, bring us back to today's, instead of showing us all of our future appointments. And under here, we also have searching previous repair orders, which is very handy. I'm sure you guys have needed to look up a previous repair order, see what work you've done. A couple ways to do it is to search the previous repair orders by these criteria, the repair order number, date, or date paid. And note, we also have the ability to go look in the cash drawer, which is where we track our payments. And that's how we can actually look up a previous repair order that's been paid through the cash drawer. So that's another option under here. Now we also have, which a lot of people forget about and think, how do I get back to these, is the ability to search these previous quick quotes. Now this is a pretty important feature. Now remember, when we write a quote from the side toolbar, we have an option to do a quick quote or quote for a customer and vehicle. And if we click on the quote for customer and vehicle, of course, we just go into our customer search and look up an existing customer's vehicle record to attach that quote to. If we do a quick quote and we want to save and print it, all it asks us for is their first name, first and last name. If it's a phone quote, for example, and your make and model to be able to look it up later. Well, if you want to find that quick quote again, because that person is not actually a customer in your system yet, that is where you actually use this search previous quick quotes feature. And again, you'll notice a couple of these things. You could just hit the enter key, and that's how you open a repair order. Change status, of course, you can do for any of the highlighted jobs on the service counter. But again, you can see we can always right-click, or when we close a repair order, we can always change status. So a lot of these are duplication, but this is kind of a quick way. If I was going to say, okay, this Ford Expedition, I can either hit the options button, or you'll see the same thing comes up with the right click. I just right-clicked on this line, same as the options, okay? So you could right-click, change status, will return. Right-click, change status. This is a sublet job. So whatever you need to change that to, you have that option. So also under the options button, a few other key features is we can look up a vehicle history report from here, kind of quick and handy. We can also, once we get this dial back into our system, we can look up vehicle technical service bulletins. Now, it's actually through another service right now, but this will allow you to look up technical service bulletins, and so it's just a quick access way to get in there. So also from here, we have the ability to look up some different catalogs rather than having to actually peruse through an RO. Let's say a lot of folks that sell tires, for example, they actually use the utility here to import catalog data. So let's say you're carrying 3 lines of tires or maybe specialty parts. Instead of really having to open up an RO to look up at that information, a lot of people don't know under this options button, you have the ability to look at those catalogs and peruse them. And then, of course, the two at the bottom here, you have the ability to filter what shows up on this schedule by all these criteria. I mean, this is very cool. When people finally ask about this feature and we show them how to do it, they're so excited. So it's kind of cool. We can decide to only look at open repair orders for today or all days, which means going forward. Or we can say, I really just want to look at, complete jobs. I only want to filter it to see complete jobs. Or maybe I just want to look at my jobs right now that I have work in progress. So I actually just have one. So this is a great filter down here if you have a ton of jobs on your service counter, and a lot of restoration shops use this. It's kind of a cool feature. And also, other than the filter, we have a sort. We can sort it by the customer's name if you want to go alphabetical. You can maybe sort by promise date, so you have the stuff that needs to go today at the top, or by status, which I think is pretty handy. We worked in a really big shop at one point where we had, 7 techs and 9 total, 7 techs and 2 machine shop folks. So we actually would sort this by technician. So when they came up to the front counter to get the next job, we could sort by technician, and it would group them all together. So we could kind of say, well, you got this job coming up, and then they could pick their order. So it's kind of a nice way to sort if you have a lot of data on your service counter, which we're kind of moderate right now with our demo copy. So let me stop real quick. Any questions on any of these options here? So are you guys using this option button a lot to get to a lot of different features and functionality? Is this used very often?
We use it a lot of the time. I've never used the sort schedule. On that one, can you select multiple ones if I want to see everything except the completed ones?
I've had people say, well, could I have like a second tier and then sort by a first sort order, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, and then pick the next column to sort my data that way? No, we don't. And I've actually put that request in a couple weeks ago. I thought it was a cool idea. I did not come up with it. But no, it's actually just one sort criteria or just one filter criteria at this time. But like I said, I think that's a cool idea. Yeah, good question. We also have the ability here to print technician worksheets from this options button. When you guys are coming in and out of an RO and you want to save and print, you can always have that option here. Let's look at that. If we open this one and we say, okay, save and print. If I hit save and print, I could say here, I just want to print a technician worksheet, but I also have to print one copy of my RO. Well, I don't really want to do that and waste that kind of paper. So this is kind of a cool, I'm going to close out of here and say don't print. This is actually a cool feature just to highlight on this options in print technician worksheet. And now actually I'm working on the latest update on the beta version. I'm still doing some beta testing. We actually have that feature now available from the right click, which I'm not sure if we had that one before, but it's a pretty cool feature to be able to say, I'm not going to go into here, but knock me out a technician worksheet for my guy for this Saturn. So that's a little bit about the options. Now I want to talk a little bit about these links because I, again, was a user for, forever, and I don't think until I actually came to work for these guys I even realized what these features did. Now what these links do is just change this view down here at the bottom. And it has to do with your workflow, and it's custom. It's pretty much you pick which view is going to be custom to your workflow. So the schedule, if you have a huge schedule, if you just click on schedule, it shows everybody. But since I typically don't, fill up my schedule, or some people actually use double line, not this single line schedule down here. See this checkbox? They like to actually see more information without having to actually click in there. And if you do that, then you may want a little more real estate here by clicking on schedule. I'm going back to single line, though. This is just more comfortable for me. And then what I end up using a lot, and I'll tell you why, because it's got a hot little feature in there, I actually like the appointment. And not really, to be honest, that I reference this so much, but here are those phone numbers, by the way. If we were on schedule view, double line, a lot of people are doing this because they want to be able to get the customer's phone numbers. Well, notice if you go single line and click on appointment, those phone numbers show up here. But really, what I think is the coolest part about this feature, if you have it on the appointments link view, is you can double click in this box right down here. It's a great little shortcut. It says double click in box to edit appointment. You can double click in there and you can say, you know what, I'm going to make this, this person has to be done at 3 o'clock, or I can say here, customer waiting. So let's make this important. And this is how it looks when it shows up. This shows up under promise time as waiting. So clicking in here, it gets me quickly into that appointment. Or let's say this one down here, let's say Voltrod Franklin. Let's say they have an appointment for today, but they're actually not going to come in until mid-October. I'm going to just double click on here and say, let's make this mid-October. And that way I don't have to open it up. It's off my screen. So you don't have to open it, you know, click on and make all those changes. It just moves it right off to your screen. So that's one of my favorite features here. And the other thing that I use this box for is when I was running MaxxTraxx, I actually was the office manager doing the accounting and bookkeeping. I wasn't really writing service, but we had 2.5 service writers at our location. So at lunchtime, let's say somebody left, I would double click in this note and say, you know, ordered, you know, belt from dealer, you know, should arrive by 2 p.m. And I would actually put my initials. So what was really cool is when our service writers came back from a lunch or break or whatever, and I was picking up the phone, and let's say a technician came in and said, look, I'm working on this Acura. I need to get this belt coming right away. I'd pick up the phone, I'd order the belt, and then I could leave a note here. So these guys could actually scroll through these screens. I could have a note for everyone. You know, will need a ride, or here's a great one, needs to get a payment plan authorized. How many times have you guys had that one? So what I can do is I'm taking notes. When the service writer comes back in, he can just scroll through here and look at the notes in this field. That was one of my favorite features of this appointment view, and that's why we use it the most. Now these I've seen a lot of shops just use as their default. Requests, this is where people would have any recommended. Let's see if we have any here. Okay, so on this first ticket, I have a recommended. So if I left it on this screen, the second this came up as an appointment, this screen down here would be populated not just with what they're here for today, the oil change, brakes, and radiator hose, but it also would show you these recommendations, and it's a great tool to upsell. So a lot of folks would use this screen a lot to be able to upsell as jobs come in, because feature this, visualize this. We could have a whole list of appointments in here. We could buzz through here and see why everybody's here by looking at their request for service, but then get the opportunity when they actually drop off their vehicle, say, hey, by the way, I got you down for an oil change, brakes, and a radiator hose, but did you want us to take care of that bearing while you're here? So that's the purpose of that view. Any questions on that one, guys? I've actually seen a lot of shops use it. I never personally did myself, but I think it's a cool feature. Now, history, I think that what's nice about history is you can actually go from appointment to history and go back. But this is awesome. You can, whatever is highlighted up here, of course, this is how all these links work. If I want to look and say, on Nick Brooker, you know, what have we done on this Chevy Suburban? I just can go from my regular view appointment to history, and I can just look in here. It says closed. Now I can open this up and look at the actual job, or I can just click on this labors button here on the lower right, And it actually tells me these are all the labors I've actually ever done on this ticket and when it was done. You know, and it was a toe-in, sublet work, had a bearing noise. You know, this is all just my demo stuff. But I did an alignment. We replaced the windshield back in March. And then you could do the same for parts. You can actually see what parts were used. And again, it's not just for the one highlighted RO, but we can go in and look at these specific ROs if we want to see detail. But the parts, this is every part you've ever put on this vehicle. So this is kind of cool. Let's say you have to do a warranty. Well, I can see. I actually, yeah, that's right. I put this water pump on. I only did it in April, so yeah, it's still under warranty. So that is some very cool usage of these links. Again, a lot of people leave it on requests, leave it on appointments. I haven't actually seen a lot of people leave it on history, but it's a cool way to get in and out, to share some information with their customer while they're standing in front of you or on the phone. Now, under the mark, yes?
It's also a great way to manage your quotes. If you guys are using quotes to build up a ticket, or you want to bring a quote out, it's the fastest way to get an open quote.
True. Well, here, for example, is an open one, Walter. Let's double-click on it and let's look. So this obviously was a pretend one, but here we did a tranny flush with filter. We have our fluid, our cleaner, conditioner, and the kit, the filter kit. So, yeah, that's actually a great way to see what you quoted in before. So, yeah, you could say, you know, Nick, last time, you know, we were in, we had you guys in. If I go ahead and just close out of here, and it's 288. Yeah, that's right. We quoted you in April to do a tranny flush on this Suburban. Did you want to go ahead and do that? And, yeah, price on that was $288. We can get that going for you. And you're right, Walter. We don't actually have to be in the RO. But, again, an upselling tool, just like the recommended services, we can grab it out of quotes.
Now, I do have a question because I don't know. If you click on that open quote,
yeah.
If you go save it and you create a repair order, is it going to create another repair order, or will it drop on the open repair order?
Yes, it will create another repair order. See, we convert quote to repair order. It would actually create another one. I think it would. Let's double click. Yeah. But what we can do, at least we can see it's there. And actually, this is in completed status. Let me take this one and change status, get it back into work in progress. But at least, Walter, what it could tell you from right there is it say, hey, you know, you have quotes for this guy. Well, actually, I don't anymore because I just converted it to a new repair order. Let me hit save and hit refresh. And, you know, it should be coming right back up. Let me go back up here. It's a good question, Walter. I think we need to talk a little bit about what's our best way to do workflow, especially when we're talking about, do we really want to start changing the way that we do recommendeds and apply them to repair orders and the way that we do quotes and apply them? The other thing about this quote I just realized is it may have expired. It's open, but it may have expired. That may be part of what's going on with that. But at least you know it's there and you can upsell it to the customer. Marketing. Yes?
I think the key thing is that you can have different service writers with different flows, and as long as it's acceptable to the shop owner, there's a lot of different ways of doing it.
Sure. And there's so many different shops, so every shop is going to have a different workflow. So same thing, marketing is just, again, I typically would leave it on appointment or schedule, but marketing will let you know, I've got some follow-up letters for you. Let's see if we've got one. Here we go. And this, again, is a nice way to say, well, I actually sent you a recommended services here back in September, so you know that you've actually this one's recommended. This is letters to send. Here I can click on my radio button and say sent letters, so I can see that on May 16th I sent you a recommended service. So that is kind of handy just to see what marketing you've done, because you kind of don't want to overwhelm your folks with too many marketing postcards. We find that with some of the third-party marketing firms, Customer Link, Mechanic Net, that you don't want to just inundate your folks with postcards, because in my opinion, it's a personal choice, but I think if you kind of balance that out, volume, you don't want to make them numb to it. And then my
You
last
can also
year.
use that to you can also use that to manage your marketing, because if you need, if it's a fleet truck, before you close the vehicle out, if you want to add when you want to see that fleet or when their next bit inspection is or whatever, you can assign them right here also.
True, rather than in your workflow when you exit your RO.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true, because not everybody has that feature turned on. I actually do. I have it set up under setups here, repair order and parts invoice. Here, I actually have my workflow to always tell me, assign a marketing letter to send when paying the RO, and I have always, because I want to make sure I've got the next job ready to go. And we also have this other feature up here where we can ask for a new appointment after paying the RO. It's, again, just like the dentist office. You know, do you want to go ahead and schedule something 3 months out from now for another oil change? Any questions on that? Any ideas or how you guys would use this? Okay. So last one was revisions, and this just tells us, you know, for some states, this is a real big stickler. You may be cruising through your open jobs and realize, shoot, I don't have a revision for this guy, and we're already doing more work on this job. So this is really a feature depending on the requirements of your state. California is a real stickler with this, with the bar. This, every time you revise that estimate, you need to call and get authorization. And this just is nice because it tells you, yeah, I talked to this person on 9/29 at 9:17 a.m. and got the authorization to charge another $98. And I talked to this person by email, or I got authorization from this person by email. So that's a little bit about options and links on the service counter. Any questions on those? Well, let's jump over to parts counter. Not a lot of people use this, but I just thought I'd highlight this. Very similar options. You just have a few additional features in here. Again, you can see your customer's purchase history. If you want to search a previous invoice, very similar. And again, we don't actually have any additional links here, different views like we do at the service counter. So really the 3 other areas I wanted to cover where we have options and links is the customer record, the vendor record, and I wanted to review a little bit in the parts record because, of course, the links that are available, the information available in a part record is different from what's in the part wizard, at a part wizard. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's start with customers. So if I go ahead and put in a customer and bring up a customer record, again, we have options button and links. Now, the options button, this is your action. This is where activity happens. The links are more reference information. So the links just give you, of course, different screens over here. But we have the general information, and here's where we access our vehicles. And then we have details, and of course, vehicles go away. But here's all these different vehicles. This is where you can put in your tax rate, and this is where we set up our AR finance charges. If you've been using MaxxTraxx for a long time, you'll realize that we got our AR finance charges in the update earlier this year, so it's kind of a new thing. So there's, if you want to set this up individually per customer, it's done here. So a lot of your setup, reference information, parts price coding levels is all done in here. Here we also tell folks whether or not you want to include the mass marketing or give them a special marketing tag. So I think a lot of people don't really get an opportunity to explore some of the information and functionality under here. So phones are pretty straightforward. Billing, this alternate billing information, if you actually were to enter information in here, the way it works is that if you were to create a AR statement, create a statement for this customer, or send them a refund check, it will actually put this information there instead. If you leave it blank, it just goes to the general. But if you do have like corporate accounts or lease companies like GE Capital would often have a fleet that they pay the bills for, you put their information here. Drivers are here and listed here so that you can actually select on the RO who the actual driver of that car is. You may have a family of 6 people, and you want to know, who drives the Saturn, who drives the Mini, who drives the Honda and the Scion, and you know who drives what, so that when you call, to talk to them about their car, you know who the driver is. That's what this is used for, and it's selected when you create the RO. One of my favorite features here, Notes Alerts. You enter the information in the link here. Notes Alerts, always needs a ride to work. Oh, I love this one. Always asks for a discount. Now, why this is really cool, well, you put notes up in here, like referrals. I've had one referral. You might want to track, if you have a referral program, people that are referred in the notes field, and after 3 or 5 or whatever, you might give them a gift certificate or a discount. But this customer alert field is cool. Let's go ahead and click OK and save it. Because within an RO, not that one, want to get to the other one. Within this RO, you can see this alert. And if you're stealthy and you just roll over it, you'll see it pops up in yellow, always asks for a discount if you're real stealthy. The other thing is you just click on it and it opens it up if it's a big message. And this is a good way to, let that service writer know if there's something special about that customer. Maybe you need to price it differently. Maybe they always ask for a ride. Maybe it's the owner's daughter. You better take good care of her. That kind of thing. And I love this feature. And we also now have this customer alert available on the parts counter, which is kind of new. We didn't have that before. So let's jump back into customer record. And last was letters. This is similar to what we had down here under marketing, these links in the lower left. It just gives you a history of all the letters that have ever been sent. And it says letters that you have scheduled to be sent. And since this one's so past due, for example, we could just clean it up and delete it. Are you sure you want to delete it? Yeah. So that's where you can go in and clear these out. Any questions on these on the links? So let's jump to this is the action stuff. Under the customer options, we actually have actions where we take a deposit on account. You can view all of the customers' transactions. We actually have this set to always show just open invoices. But remember, click on Find down here, guys, if you want to look at additional transactions. And you could say, I want to look at everything in the last year, open, close, credits, the whole shoot and match. So when I click OK, it gives me more action, okay? So it's just a little hint a lot of people don't know about when you want to view transactions. It defaults just to the open stuff, okay? This is, of course, where we pay AR invoices if you need to write an invoice or a credit to a customer. And remember, when you're doing this in the back end, what I call the back end, the customer's record, we're not going to have anything in the vehicle record section. So you might actually want to create an RO, or even if you're going to do a credit, you can always do a credit on an RO for a part through the service counter, because that way, number one, you aren't just managing the customer's account, you're also managing your inventory. So if you have to do a credit back for a part. And then here we can print the individual AR statement, or if the customer has credit available, this is lit up. If they actually don't have any credit available, it's grayed out. But what this allows us to do is if I have this big chunk of money sitting on my account and I want to get it back from this shop, Ascent Automotive, I can say, refund me that money. Click on that, say, refund me everything. I want all that money. And it's $1,640. Click OK, and then we can just write a check for that customer and print it out just like a regular check. So that's how you how you do your actions under options. We're going to talk about at the end of the month, customers as employees as vendors. And that's where this view and edit record type is used, because you can have a customer that was also a vendor. They sell you stuff. And there's also an employee. They get work done at the shop and have payments deducted out of their paycheck to pay for their repair bill at your shop. So we're going to get into more details about that in a future webinar. But this is where we set that up. When you call a customer all of these things, say I'm both a customer and an employee, you're linking their customer record to their paycheck. Very handy. So like I said, we'll get into details about that at the other webinar. And then if you're set up to dial. We have this here. History report. This just gives you transaction history for the customer, not their individual vehicle. Okay, so that's what this is about. Just gives you, the ability to look at each one. If they had 5 vehicles, it would just list every job they've ever done all together. Okay, under vehicle options is where you would look at vehicle history report if you want a history report just for that Saturn, or highlight it and get a history report just for that Mini Cooper. So that's a little bit about the difference. And at the very bottom, customer sales by year report. Now this is a new feature as well. So this will tell me how much I've spent at this shop. In 2010, I have this much in dollar amount for repair invoices. If I had any credits, parts invoices is stuff that's on the service counter, and this is my total purchases. Parts invoices on the parts counter, repair invoices on the service counter. So that's kind of a new reference, kind of a new feature. Any questions about the options and links in the customer record? Okay, so we're going to move on to vendors and do a quick little view of that parts record. So now, vendors are going to look almost exactly the same. Instead of being an accounts receivable and AR, it's accounts payable and AP. So let's look at CarQuest, for example. Same thing with the options and the links. Links are information. Options are actions. So again, a little more information that you can put in these links other than this information here is it's pretty straightforward, the phone, but again, mailing address. If you put in a different mailing address, when you print a check that goes to this vendor, CarQuest may have a corporate address that you mail the payments to rather than your local store. And that's where you put a different mailing address. Account information is just some details, just your account ID, and if you want to set up your due date setup, if you're on account with them, very cool. Or if you want to track these charges in a separate account on your general ledger, you do it here. We also do have the ability to designate this as a corporation, or they're not a corporation, they're 1099ers, which there's a dollar amount. I can't remember what it is. There's a federal threshold that says if you spend X amount of dollars with a company, you legally are supposed to do a 1099. We actually, if you check this box for this vendor, we have a very cool report that does it for you at the end of the year. Kind of nice. And in fact, people just don't even really know about that. Now, under catalog, this is where you set up any kind of catalog. And let's say CarQuest is IAP, for example. This is where you select the catalog type, enter in the information, and this is where you then can, from within these ROs here, order up parts online to this vendor. And notice here we have something new, again, because I'm working on the update beta, is part price matrix. We have the multiple part price matrices. So if I say this is CarQuest, I'm going to use my default matrix. But if this were like Phil Long Ford or Phil Long Mitsubishi, it's a dealer, I may use my dealer parts pricing matrix because I'm not that aggressive. I maybe get, J on that, or, whereas with CarQuest I get, J minus 20, for example. And I love this one I created, oil filters. If I buy all my oil filters from one location, I can give a parts price matrix here as well. I actually have my oil filters part price matrix set up. If I buy an oil filter for less than $3, I mark it up by $2, period. If it's $3 to $5, I mark it up $1.50. If it's a filter that costs me over $5, I just add $1 to each filter. So you can play around with these matrices any way you want, and now we can assign them at the vendor level. Very cool, especially if you're importing parts into your parts list and onto your ROs through online parts ordering. It knows right here which matrix to use. And then, of course, just a notes field. Doesn't print anywhere, doesn't go anywhere, just handy to have. Any questions, guys, on the links on the vendor record? Okay, quick and dirty, get down to the options, pretty straightforward. Again, transactions look exact same way. It's only going to show open invoices and credits unless you click the Find button. And you may want to say, show me, all activity for last year. and it gives you everything, okay? And notice here we also have these checkboxes to be able to show additional information, okay? Pretty straightforward, but this find button, a lot of people just think, oh, it only shows open invoices. Nope, nope, you can look at it for a whole range. I could say, look at all my 2009 transactions, if I had any, or look it up by transaction number. So that is under options. Of course, this is where you pay your bills. I'm sure you guys do that all the time. Again, create new invoice and new credit. If you're dealing with a vendor record, probably a good idea to not be doing invoices and credits back here. We need to do it through Restock Parts or the Order Parts feature because we want to make sure our inventory is kept up to date as well. But I did have another person that we could have put it here, and then I think about it, they got a credit on their account for $150 because they had a bunch of returns on water pumps, and they just did a goodwill return. We could have actually put the credit in here and just expensed it to whatever expense account we wanted to apply that credit to, which actually would have lowered our expenses. So that's another way you could have done that. Again, under the options button, same thing. If you are receiving an AP credit refund, I mean, how many times does this happen? You're on cash with somebody, and the dealer gives you cash back or mails you a check. Well, you go through Restock Parts, you post it to the dealer's vendor account, but then how do you actually get that cash into your bank account? You go here. And if you have a credit, which actually I don't on this one, but we, again, click on Receive AP Credit Refund, and it tells you what was the method, payment, cash, check, credit card. And you would just select that, and it puts that money that you received right into your money bag to be deposited later on that day. So that does it for this options button. Any questions on here? Okay, guys, we're going to review one more section, and it's actually just links, not options, but in a parts record. Let's just go here and look at this part number. You know, again, there's a lot of information in here, and this format looks so different than the Add a Part wizard, you know, when you're entering a part in the system for the very first time. So what happens when you do the Add a Part wizard? You know, we have those little asterisks, red asterisks that says this information must be entered. And some people do just put in part number, part description, product code. They leave that general inventory. It needs to be new, rebuilt, or used, and then you put a cost in there. That's it. But we have a lot of different features in here that can be used. And if something comes over from online parts ordering, you order parts online from WorldPack or from Factory Motor Parts or from CarQuest or Advanced Auto Parts. It only brings over those four essential plus cost, 4 essential pieces of information: part number, part description, product code, which defaults to general inventory, and new, used, or rebuilt, right? And then it does bring over cost, and of course that auto-populates for you and uses your matrix that you have set up. But we have all these other fields that you can always fill in later. You have the ability to adjust your stock from here. This is where if you just go outside and you realize, shoot, I say that I have one on hand, but I really don't, I can just adjust it out. And you can track all those adjustments. You can check your sales. Every time I've sold this, who I sold it to, how much and when. All my purchases, all the time I purchased it, and from what vendor. I can actually see here, well, WorldPack, it gave me a smoking deal on this. So this is a nice feature to be able to see what you've actually paid from different vendors. Okay, so not a lot of people use this. It's kind of a cool feature. Pricing, of course, just takes us to our price matrix. And by the way, here's that default pricing matrix. This is a seal, so I probably would give it a dealer pricing. It would change my matrix. Kind of cool. I'm so excited about that. Just wanted to show you. And user charges. Here's another one that, you know, people don't always realize they can tie a hazardous materials fee, like hazardous disposal fee, to every oil filter. And if you set it up in here under user charges, it will add, for example, $1 every time you sold this part. Well, obviously not a hazardous waste charge on a seal, but let's say it was an oil filter. We could tell a system every time you sell this oil filter, charge $1. and it does the subtotal on the customer's RO. So kind of nice. Vendors just gives you your first call, your second call, third call. It's kind of nice. And you can change it so that move up or down. So you know what? I want to use CarQuest from now on as my first call because I get better pricing. That'll show up when you create a purchase order as your primary vendor. So that's how that works. Cores, of course, just gives you an opportunity to make any edits here if your base cost changes or you want to change your price to your customer. You know, one thing I just want to throw out there, kind of not on the whole subject of options and links, but you guys do know that when you buy a part that has a core associated with it and it's considered a new core, it doesn't show up here as a quantity anywhere. Now it shows up under here, this general ledger amount. It'll show up here once, you know, let's say you pay $50 for a part and $25 for the core charge. That actually is held on the general ledger account, that $25 as an inventory new core. But then once you put this part on the RO and say, you know, core received, no charge to customer, then I call it that dirty old core, you know, a dirty, greasy old core that you have on the shop floor, that becomes a used core. And then it will show a quantity used core in stock as soon as you put it on that RO. You don't have to post and pay that RO for it to show up here. So that's just something I wanted to bring to your attention. I've had a lot of shops over the years say, you know, shoot, where are my new core charges? Why aren't they showing up? Well, we don't actually track them because they're actually not a physical, tangible, personal property, whereas a dirty old used core is, and that's why it'll show up here as a quantity one. Now we do have cross-references that are new and improved in the searchability, by the way, but this is where you can go in and edit, add. You can tell it it's an interchangeable part rather than just a cross-reference, and the difference, again, between interchangeable and cross-reference is interchangeable is an actual part you have on hand. And we can tell it if it's a superseded part. You know, we change superseded our part number. And then, of course, notes. And notes now show up in our part search, but they don't print anywhere. Okay? So tell me, guys, you guys find value in this webinar? Is this useful, this kind of information? Because I'm not sure if we should be having some more webinars where we cover this kind of data, where we're getting into a little bit deeper into the functionality. Is it something that's useful for you? Robin, I just took you off of mute. We had a lot of background noise in the beginning with you, so I now have you unmuted. Okay, guys. Well, we do put these
Brenda?
up here. Yeah.
One more thing. Would you jump into an invoice?
Yes.
This is something I didn't know for the longest time. The customer name and the vehicle are links.
You know, that's true. If you want to quickly get into the customer information, you click on this blue underlined, takes you right to that customer record instead of having to click on the little red car. And yeah, good one, Walter. And this is priceless for ordering parts. You just click on this link, and there's your last 8 of the VIN. You know, when people say, well, I need the last 8 of the VIN for that, you just click right in there. Or is it, you know, single, you know, if you have any engine ID information in here, you know, this is a single overhead cam or whatever. So this is a very cool feature that is just really, really quick. And you're right, Walter. I don't think people realize this, but I used it. Actually, one of the few features I learned by myself very early on.
Okay.
Quick way to get in.
Yeah, the other thing that I was using it for was to, again, manage my quotes, because if I want to edit a quote, then I can jump in the customer name and go to my option, or vehicle option, and grab my quote real quick. I can make edits to my quote if I need to. That's my fastest way to quote.
And then go ahead and add your quote.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Gotcha. Good idea. Good idea. So jump into the customer, edit that quote. Okay. Very good. Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions for today, I really appreciate your time and consideration. I hope you found some of this useful and found some new features and functionality in MaxxTraxx to be able to tie into your workflow. If you guys ever want to do something, you're thinking, gosh, how do I accomplish that? You know what? Give us a call, because I bet you these guys have thought about it. And it's just a matter of showing you, shoot, how do I get to that feature, that functionality? One more last quick little fun thing I'm going to show you as I exit out of here. We now have the ability to right-click and, actually, no, I take it back. From within the RO, I think I have the ability, I'm talking out of school, to be able, you know what it is? It's in the customer record. New feature. If I go in the customer record, instead of having to actually open up the account, I now can right-click and take a deposit on account. It's a brand new feature. That's why I couldn't remember where it was. So you don't actually have to open up the record. Just say, yeah, I'm going to put $100 on account. And this is a cool way to do it. And you can print a receipt for them. So I just want to show you that. Well, guys, we'll look forward to seeing you on next week's webinar. I'll send a follow-up email this afternoon and give you a link to the archived webinar in case you ever need to reference this in the future. And please do give me some feedback, if you don't mind, from this webinar. I want to kind of get a pulse on if this information is the right kind of thing to present or not. So we'll get that out to you this afternoon, and everybody have a great week. We'll talk to you next time.